Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Navita KJ Johnson Belcher, and this is I Am Carrying on a Great Project, Guarding the Rebuild Against Distraction. This is a digital, trauma informed, biblically based mental health education session. And today we're walking through the story of Nehemiah and what it teaches us about protecting the work God has given us to do when distraction comes against it. Let me set the scene. The people of Jerusalem are coming home from exile, and this is the third group of people that's returning. And the wall they're rebuilding is far more than stone. It's the restoration of their safety, their dignity, and their identity as a people. So when we talk about the rebuild, we're really talking about a recovery process. And here's the truth this teaching rests on. Anyone doing the brave work of restoration, whether physically, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, will meet resistance. We all will meet resistance. So think about, for yourself. Has there been a season when you were rebuilding or building something and opposition showed up? I know for me, over the last 3 years, as I was completing my doctoral program, that there was all kinds of opposition that was coming up, whether it was in my personal life, whether it was with family, with peers, things that's happening in society. It was all kind of different things that was coming up as a distraction. But thank God I remained focused. And in your life as well, I know as you work to rebuild or to begin building things, you may have also faced opposition. And we're going to examine that through the lens of Nehemiah today. So notice it was never just one man against Nehemiah. The opposition was a coalition, and they surrounded him on every side. You had Sanballat the Horonite, who was the governor of Samaria to the north, the public political voice of opposition. Then you had Tobiah the Ammonite from the east, the relational insider, married into Jewish families and tied to the nobles of Judah. His threat works from inside the community. Then you had Geshem the Arab from the south. He lends his name and voice to the rumor campaign. And then the people of Ashdod, the old Philistine territory to the west. North, south, east, and west, Nehemiah was surrounded on every side. That matters because when you're rebuilding something hard, opposition can feel like it's coming from everywhere at once. That feeling of being encircled is real. And Nehemiah shows us it doesn't have to stop the work. Nehemiah 4th chapter 7 through the 8th verse says, But when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the people of Ashdod heard that the repairs to Jerusalem's walls had gone ahead and that the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it. Hear that. They were very angry and they plotted together. The closer the gaps came to closing, the louder the opposition grew. Progress itself provoked them. Here's the through line for everything that follows. This coalition never once tears down the wall with their hands. Every single attack is aimed at Nehemiah's attention, his emotions, and his focus. The wall was never really in danger from them, only from their ability to pull the builder's eyes off the work. So watch how they escalate. When we read Nehemiah 6 chapter 3rd verse, it says, I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? Watch the escalation. It changes shape until it finds the crack. Ridicule and mockery, number one. In Nehemiah, the second chapter, the 19th verse, and the fourth chapter, the first through the third verse, they sneer at the builders as feeble and the work as laughable, to shrink their belief in what their ability is and their belief in what they can do. So even in your own life, when you think about that, when you're hearing ridicule and mockery or someone laughing at you, you're gonna do what? That don't make sense. That's not gonna work out. They're laughing and mocking what God is giving you. They did that to again shrink their belief in their abilities and what they were capable of doing. Do you have people in your life that's doing that to you? Number two, threat and conspiracy. In Nehemiah, the fourth chapter, the seventh through the eighth verse, when mockery fails, they plot violence and create a climate of constant fear. So then they start threatening them, right? So the threat and conspiracy. So when the first thing didn't work, the mockery, now it's trying to, incite fear. Then number three, spreading discouragement. Nehemiah 4 and 10. The workers themselves begin repeating that their strength is failing. The message is now coming from the inside. So now they've allowed what was on the outside to come on the inside, and now they're becoming discouraged. Then number four, there was a slander and a hired prophet. Nehemiah 6 chapter the 5th through the 13th verse. A false letter and a paid insider trying to frighten and shame Nehemiah. Then you had the reasonable invitation. 4 times they invite him to meet on the plain of Ono. It sounds cooperative, but it will pull him off the wall into open ground. And that way he wouldn't be protected or covered. His answer is the verse on this slide. When he says to them, I'm carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? Listen to that escalation. You have mockery, threat, social pressure, a reasonable meeting that sounds like it could be a good thing, character assassination, a trusted sounding insider. That's the anatomy of distraction. Think about which of these tactics have you felt? The mockery, the rumor, or the reasonable invitation that would have pulled you off of your wall. Think about it. It may be a TV show. Girl, did you watch the show today? The Housewives, or hey, did you catch the game? Oh, we're going to happy hour. Do you want to go? Hey, we're doing this. All of these different tactics, and it may not be the mockery or the rumor. It may be a reasonable invitation, but it's pulling you off of your assignment and off of the wall that God has called for you to complete. Now let's name what's happening underneath these tactics in plain language. Because when you can name what you're experiencing, shame loses its grip and help becomes findable. Those who carried materials, and this is Nehemiah 4th chapter, 17th verse, those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. There are 3 concepts here. Distraction, also known psychologically as attentional hijacking, which is anything that pulls your attention off what matters most. Our focus is already limited, so when something grabs it, the main thing gets neglected. That was the invitation to Ono, that plain of Ono, not an attack, but bait for his attention. Then you had intimidation and hypervigilance. Intimidation is using fear to control someone. When a threat never lets up, the body stays stuck on high alert. That exhausting, always scanning state, always looking for what's getting ready to happen, when the ball's going to drop. That's the picture in this verse. A tool in one hand, a weapon in the other. Even in your own life, there may be people that love you but really is trying to intimidate you in some ways through using fear to control you. telling you that something won't work out or it's not going to go. You don't need to go back to school because how you're going to do this, that's not going to work. All of the things to distract you from listening to the calling of God on your life. And then you have, as another one, manipulation and gaslighting. Manipulation is dishonest influence to get what the manipulator wants. Gaslighting makes you doubt your own perception. That's the false letter and the hired prophet in the story, dressing a lie up in spiritual language. Even when you think about manipulation, sometimes people know why you may think it's a good thing and you're like, okay, well, they're asking me to do this. Sure, I'll do it. But they know they have an ulterior motive underneath that ask. And it's about control and superiority and entitlement. So you want to be mindful of that as well. And then we want to look at four more, right? Triangulation. Pressure applied through a third party instead of dealing with you directly. So Tobiah works through his in laws and the nobles. The rumor travels in Geshem's name, and the pressure comes through the other people. So it's three different ways there that they're trying to gather Nehemiah's attention. They're trying to get him off focus. And again, all three are working in tangent. Then you have emotional contagion. Feelings spread from person to person, almost like catching a cold. You know, you could catch a cold, and if somebody come around you, now they have it, then they pass it to someone. Well, fear and discouragement are especially catchy in a group. The workers caught it. Our strength is failing. Because of them hearing again the negativity around them, now they started to say, our strength is failing. Be careful about who you're having around you, who's in your environment, what are the messages that you're hearing, because those messages are influencing you whether you want to believe it or not. They're discouraging you or they're encouraging you. And then you have boundaries and assertiveness. A clear limit stated honestly and calmly without aggression or over explaining. I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Clean. Repeated 4 times. They sent people down on 4 different occasions, actually 5. But on 4 different occasions, Nehemiah gave that assertive message. I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. He did not continue to try to explain. He didn't stop the work to let me go see what they want. He stayed focused on the task. And even on that 5th time they sent someone, he didn't go. And then you have reality testing. Checking whether something is actually true before you react. Nehemiah weighs the prophet's message, recognizes the setup, and responds to the truth, not the fear. I need to say that again. Nehemiah weighs the prophet's message. He listened to the message. He recognizes the setup in the message and responds to the truth, not the fear. That prophet that was sent to him was sent to trap him, to try to get him to go into the temple to commit sin, to discredit him. And when Nehemiah stepped back to think about it, it's almost like he was saying, this doesn't make sense. I'm not going to go into the should I go into the temple? And he listened to that discerning spirit, and he knew that was not of God. Sometimes we need to take a step back, and instead of jumping to be that helping hand, stop and listen. Lord, is this of you? Sometimes we may get offered things and asked to do things, and again, it seems like a reasonable invitation. But is it a distraction, something that will take me off the wall and keep me from doing what God has called me to do? And so here I want to give this disclaimer. Again, this is digital, trauma-informed, biblically based mental health education. I do not diagnose biblical figures. A DSM-5 TR diagnosis, which again, that is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 5th edition, text revision, revision of that. And that is what doctors, psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists all use to diagnose. So a DSM-5 TR diagnosis can only be made by a qualified clinician with a living person through direct assessment. I'm using this ancient story or biblical story to illustrate what certain mental health experiences look like so you can recognize them in your own life and reach for the right help. With that boundary in place, the story is a useful teaching mirror for trauma and stressor related responses. Sustained danger can produce stress reactions, hypervigilance, disrupted sleep, an exhausted survival state. And when you think about the story of Nehemiah and the workers having to work, they're working with one hand and then they got a sword or a weapon in the other hand. They are under constant and sustained danger. And again, it can produce stress reactions, hypervigilance, disrupted sleep, and an exhausted survival state. With that, and the story is useful also for teaching, useful as a teaching mirror for adjustment type distress. When an identifiable stressor sends distress higher than usual, the opposition campaign is exactly that kind of stressor. That campaign of different people, not just Sanballat, not just Tobiah, not just Geshem, but all of the other people, them and all of the others combined, that sent their distress higher than usual. And so that's why the people start to feel bad and start to feel that their strength was weakening as well. And then you have anxiety symptom constructs in the story, constant worry, bracing for the next attack, trouble concentrating. So there are two distinctions worth holding here. First, demoralization versus clinical depression. Demoralization is that discouraged, what's the use of doing it anyway feeling that usually lives when the situation improves or support arrives. However, clinical depression, a major depressive episode, is more a persistent low mood or loss of interest most of the day, nearly every day, for at least 2 weeks, with changes in sleep, appetite, energy, and concentration, and sometimes thoughts of death. It does not simply lift when circumstances get better. That difference tells us when encouragement is enough and when someone needs professional care. Second, antagonistic patterns. The DSM 5TR alternative model describes antagonism, manipulativeness, manipulativeness, right? That's a hard word, you guys. Manipulativeness, deceitfulness, callousness, and grandiosity. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem put these behaviors on display in the story. But hear me clearly. Describing harmful behavior is not the same as diagnosing a person. We name the pattern to recognize harm and protect ourselves, never to label anyone. And then we want to look at here now the good news. Nehemiah hands us a model of resilience, and every one of his responses is something you can practice. Nehemiah 4:14 says, "After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes." Look at what he did. He prayed and acted. He prayed and then posted a guard. Faith and a concrete safety plan working together. You see that in Nehemiah 4 and 9. And then he held a clear boundary. I cannot go down. Repeated, calm, values driven. He refused the distraction without taking the bait. He just repeated, I cannot go down. I'm doing a good work. He named the lie out loud in Nehemiah 6 and 8. He answered the false accusation plainly and didn't absorb the gaslighting. He used discernment. He tested the hired prophet's message and saw the manipulation for what it was. He fed the community courage. The verse on this slide, don't be afraid, remember the Lord. He answered contagious fear with shared purpose. He kept his eyes on the mission. The wall was finished in 52 days. Protected focus finished the work. Which of Nehemiah's responses do you most need to practice in this season? Praying and acting, putting a plan together, speaking clear boundaries, naming the lies out loud, using discernment, feeding yourself through courage by remembering the Lord, or keeping your eyes on the mission. So let's bring it home wherever you are. If you can pause, do. If not, carry these questions with you. What is the great work you're building or rebuilding right now? What's your plane of, oh no, the reasonable sounding invitation that will pull you off your wall? Who are the Tobiahs, the insider voices? And what boundary do you need to repeat? And where do you need both prayer and a practical watch? I want you to think about those things. The whole strategy of the opposition depended on one thing, that Nehemiah would come down. He never did, and neither do you have to. Naming the distraction is the very first act of guarding the work. This curriculum, again, is digital trauma-informed, biblically based mental health education, and it is not a substitute for therapy or crisis care. If you're struggling, please reach out to a licensed mental health professional. And if you are in crisis, you can call or text 988 at any time. Before we close, I want to personally invite you to keep walking this journey. Everything we explore is part of Perseverance Academy. Again, a digital trauma-informed, biblically based mental health education platform. Go deeper anytime at theperseveranceacademy.com, where you'll find individual courses at your own pace. If you want to purchase all the courses in a collection, you can purchase the bundle in the complete collection, and you can also obtain reflection journals compiled. While you're there, you can visit our scripture shop for study Bibles and faith integrated planners, and the wellness shop for trusted books and tools for reflection, rest, and healing. As an Amazon associate, Perseverance Academy earns from qualifying purchases at no extra cost to you. So if you see anything on the website, it's going to take you straight to Amazon, and you're paying Amazon prices. And again, there are no extra fees or anything for you. But I want to encourage you again, if you know someone that are dealing with mental health challenges, and they may not want to go to a therapist's office, they may not want to walk down the hall in the church to the counseling center, because again, the stigma of, I don't want people to know that I'm dealing with this issue. Again, Perseverance Academy is designed for individual learning and self-paced. So if you need it, or there's someone that you know that needs it, definitely please send them over to theperseveranceacademy.com. With that being said, I want to thank you for being here and for doing this great work, for guarding the wall one faithful day at a time. You can find everything again at theperseveranceacademy.com. Until next time, have a blessed day. And again, you can find this recording on YouTube at Perseverance Ministries if you would like to watch it again, or you may see it on your Facebook or LinkedIn page. So thank you and have a great day. Until next time.